The coldest weather in decades left tens of thousands of NYCHA residents in the deep freeze for days. Now there's an official investigation into whether NYCHA cooked the books about heat that was never turned on.
I put on my 2 little blankets, and 1 little blanket, and then I have a big sleeping bag.
Ice is in the windows, very, very cold for her.
Ooh, blankets on, boiling water, burning the stove. It's not good.
From Twin Parks West in the Bronx to Farragut Houses in Brooklyn to Redfern Houses in Far Rockaway, we heard the same story. When residents complained about no heat or hot water, they were given a repair order ticket, but nothing happened.
The tickets are actually being closed out literally minutes, some even seconds after they're making them. 2, no one is coming to check on these residents.
Conflicting reports about actual heat outages in NYCHA's accounting are raising serious questions among lawmakers.
It's a little ludicrous. I mean, do you really count an apartment that has partial heat as fully resolving the issue? I don't think so.
It makes me angry to know that New York City Housing Authority is actually a bad landlord, because that's the city government.
NYCHA chairperson Shola Olatoye is already on thin ice with the city council. A Department of Investigation report found she was aware her agency lied about lead paint inspections. Now sources tell me the same DOI is looking into NYCHA's response to the cold crisis. She insists proper protocol was followed.
When there is a system-wide, i.e. development-wide outage, and there are work orders associated with that outage, when service is restored, our staff go and take apartment temperatures, random apartment temperatures, to ensure that people have legal heat, and then the work tickets associated with that heating outage are closed.
Residents at Twin Parks West in the Bronx disagree.
I put in a complaint because when they did have heat, my son's room didn't have any heat. They didn't even bother coming up. They closed the ticket and that was it.
This is what we do. This is our life.
At the Farragut Houses, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams tells me NYCHA's numbers don't match up with reality.
NYCHA was stating that buildings have heat, and customers were stating that there was no heat.
Adams says NYCHA should embrace simple technology like HeatSeek to accurately track apartment temperatures.
It's a small device, about the size of your thumb. You place it in an apartment. It monitors the heat. This way we can get a true accounting of where we're having heat problems.
NYCHA has many explanations for what went wrong, but some people say they sound like excuses. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining us is Shola Olatoye. She is the chair and CEO of NYCHA, that's the New York City Housing Authority. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Also with us is Donovan Richards Jr. He's a New York City Council member, Democrat from Queens. He represents thousands of NYCHA residents, has been getting calls since the weather got cold from people in need of heat and help. Donovan, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Also with us is Ben Kallos. He's a tenant leader. He's the president of Redfern Houses in Far Rockaway. He showed us around what was going on there, and he still does not have heat in his family's apartment. Glenn, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Olatoye, let me start with you. In terms of how NYCHA did in this crisis, how do you grade your staff and the agency?
This was an unprecedented weather event for New York. I think the mayor said we'd not seen temperatures like this in over 60 years. And, you know, NYCHA, as the country's largest public housing authority, has faced significant and continued disinvestment from the federal government for over 30 years. When I came in 2014, we made a real effort as part of our Next Generation NYCHA plan to be very honest and open with this city about the state of public housing. We had a $17 billion capital need, meaning we needed $17 billion today.
A lot of the equipment is old. Okay, let me cut to the chase. So
60 years old.
A lot of the equipment is old, understood. A lot of the buildings have been around for decades.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the coldest spell we've had in decades here in New York City, but it gets cold every winter. I've been all throughout the city, and in every single housing development, people say, this is what happens every winter. It's just people don't pay attention. Donovan, what are you hearing?
I think one of the biggest issues was really communication. I think that there were things that could have been done better. I think when it comes to ticket accountability, you know, residents were calling and they were putting tickets in, and then they were seeing their tickets closed. So there was a lot of miscommunication that, you know, quite frankly, is not necessarily a budget fix. I do definitely commend NYCHA and our chairwoman for the work that she's done.
What's it been like for you, Glenn? You've made calls and complaints specifically about your apartment?
Calls, complaints, development complaints, individual complaints, emails, text messages, everything we could possibly do under the sun. Our elected officials came to our aid. We're having this meeting. You came to our development previously. We're just trying to take advantage of everything that we have to shed a light on an ongoing situation.
All right, let's get this guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Give us a big picture here.
I think it's really important both to talk about the specific development that Mr. Collins and his family reside in, and the broader portfolio issues. Over 90% of our residents had heat this weekend, and for every and for the 10% approximately that didn't, there was, which is both unacceptable.
But 10% is still 60,000 people, Chairwoman.
Unacceptable.
10% is 60,000 people.
Which is both unacceptable and it should not be in 2018.
But what do you say to Glenn?
So what I say to Glenn, and we've spent some time talking, is the Redfern development, and his family and those residents know it better than most, was hit tragically by Hurricane Sandy some 5 years ago. There was 8 feet of water in their basements.
So they were in bad shape to begin with.
They were already behind the 8 ball.
Okay.
And then we had a peninsula-wide power outage. So there were a confluence of events that led us to here. We're gonna dig deeper, and we're gonna do an after action to find out what happened here. We were talking about
it was, you're saying, like a perfect storm of bad situations.
There was a perfect storm of some circumstances, but I heard and I hear the councilman and Mr. Collins saying communication can be better. We could always do better communication.
But where is the?
But I really want your viewers and your listeners to hear that we had some approximately 3,000 men and women who oftentimes are residents of NYCHA themselves, working on 24 hours and around the clock to both identify and fix the issues.
I'm sure people were working hard, and I'm sure you want heat for everyone else's family like you do for your own. But here's the thing I don't understand. Every other emergency we have in New York City, whether it's a power outage, whether it's a terror attack, whether it's a major fire, whether it's a water main break or whatever, there's an emergency protocol that kicks in immediately so that people are not suffering. People are not sleeping out on the streets totally unprotected. I didn't get that sense of urgency. Why weren't there warming centers set up immediately? Why wasn't OEM called in immediately when these breakdowns are coming? And did you even know that these breakdowns were happening until people were calling?
A warming center. Look, I'm not going to sit here and defend every single action that was taken.
And you're not on trial, and it's not a city council hearing, but we're trying to understand.
But I think it's important for both listeners and viewers to know, because the councilman and I were in touch, during this weekend as well. The community center was open for our residents, late and for as a potential warming center.
Which community center?
The center that's at the Redfern community.
Is that true, Glenn?
No, because partially of that building has no heat.
Yeah, the actual community center didn't have heat as well.
So the warming center does not have heat.
So there was heat that came on initially, but I think the day we met with your staff, actually, there was no heat in the center. The heat had just got on, I think, when we got there, and then it went out subsequently after.
I take issue a little bit with the sense that people aren't working. Are they working?
I'm not saying they're not working. I'm saying they're getting paid for a job. You can't. That's not equivalent in my book to somebody who's paying to live there and not having basic human services. Chairwoman, there were accusations in the media that in terms of these tickets, which are the work orders, the term that's given to the work orders, or at least the term people use when they make a complaint, they're given a ticket, a work order number, that NYCHA was cooking the books about the number of complaints that actually were received. What do you say to that?
Well, we're going to spend some time to really understand what happened specifically at Redfern this weekend. But our general process here is when there is a system-wide, i.e. development-wide outage, and there are work orders associated with that outage, when service is restored, our staff go and take apartment temperatures, random apartment temperatures, to ensure that people have legal heat, and then the work tickets associated with that heating outage are closed. If an apartment still has in-unit apartment outages, we encourage residents to call, because then there may actually be something specific to an apartment. A valve that's open, a window that's open, an air conditioner vent that's not closed.
So Glenn, almost a week out since the storm, did you receive any visits from anybody? We saw the mobile command center, the NYCHA mobile command center that's there at Redfern. Have you received any visits?
We received a visit. It was the second night, and they came to do a temperature drop, which is they come in with a thermometer, they go into a specific place of your apartment, not throughout the apartment, and check the temperature. Now, most of us in public housing, what we do is we utilize the oven and stove for heat. So you're not going to get an accurate temperature of the apartment if you have no heat, or is you just now coming up.
Because people are doing what they can do to stay warm.
To stay warm.
And what was the temperature when folks came?
They said the temperature was, 72? But like I stated, the oven and stove was
So if you turn the oven off, it would be below 60, do you think, or?
I'm not going to, say below 60, but it's definitely going to be cold.
And I don't think we should speculate. I mean, look, what he is confirming, that the process that we've put in place is what he experienced. Now, again, Redfern had literally, we would fix it, it would break 6 hours
Which
later.
is what happens with boilers in cold weather. People know that, right?
Yes, except these are actually mobile boilers, because the actual real boilers were flooded under 8 feet of water. And so there is
6 years ago.
Yes, and the
6 years ago.
And the work that we have been doing with both FEMA, the state of New York, and the city of New York to deliver what is the largest FEMA allocation to any city is happening. It's actually happening.
Will they have new boilers by next winter?
The construction is happening now. There will be new buildings associated with those boilers. It would absolutely be my hope that they have a new system by the winter, and we absolutely are pushing our contractor to try and make that happen. But this is a massive re-engineering of what is a 60-plus-year-old development, and something that we...
Okay, so that kind of, in my mind, makes it even worse, because for 6 years, the boilers have been debilitated because of Sandy.
Yes.
And so knowing winter is coming, Councilman, should there have been some kind of an emergency plan in place?
And I think this is something that the city has to take a wider look. There needs to be contingency plans. We know every winter there's going to be challenges. We know in the summer there are going to be challenges.
We have cooling centers in the summer.
But one of the things NYCHA can do immediately is look at putting together a citywide protocol plan. And in NYCHA, in Redfern, what we saw is those protocols break down.
What's going to be different for next year for them?
One, I love what Councilman Donovan Richards just put out there as a challenge, which is more resources, because, Lisa, at the end of the day,
it's money.
You can have your press conferences, you can have your reports. These buildings are 60 years old or older, and they did not get that way in 4 years. They require, it's just like your house or your car, and they require replacement, and they require care and stewardship. Did we do everything perfectly? Would never say that. And there's obviously an improvement in to go dig deeper here at Redfern. But the reality here is we have a $17 billion capital need and counting, and we have a federal government that has completely walked away from public housing.
Which we know, so we know we're not depending on Washington for that.
What kind of city do we want for the 1 in 14 New Yorkers?
Donovan, what about in terms of without billions of dollars? What things do you see can be done?
We could make sure at the very least we're at least giving a resident a heater, right? To make sure that they can at least have heat in one room, at least until the issue is dealt with. I think making sure that there are more resources on the ground to really get to apartments. And I know NYCHA is overtaxed, but there has to be organizations like the Red Cross, OEM, and others that can step in, making sure people have basics.
But
maybe
why
blankets,
isn't there? But Glenn, is there any kind of network or communication or like calling, like they do for the schools, the calling tree or the reverse calling, anything for you as the tenant leader? Is there anything like that?
Not trying to be funny or anything like that, because remember, when these things happen, these would be after business hours. So we wouldn't have no choice but to call the 707 number.
Or call me.
Or call me.
Yes, myself.
Yeah.
I think that's important to note that people not having heat is not unacceptable, and it is also the law, and that the rest of the city was also struggling with this as well. So one, I would say, we have to do some work specifically at Redfern. Two, I would say we have to, continue to coordinate with our city partners. And three, I'd say we need money, and we need money to fix these buildings, and we need money to ensure that people have consistent service. Can we be better in communication? Absolutely. To your point, is there someone he can call? Yes. And in fact, there were many conversations that he had with.
Does he have a number for somebody in your office he can call now?
I don't know that. You have to ask him, but I'd be happy to share that. I have been, incredibly accessible to my residents, people calling me at all times of the night, and, people need help. I was going to say, and Councilman Richards, included.
Okay, but so Glenn's going to have a direct line to you.
Absolutely. That isn't the issue.
Because we're going to check on that.
But that isn't the issue, Lisa. The issue here is
well, no, I think it is the issue. I think the issue is that people on the, what you're calling on the ground, people who are living through this suffering, it's very real.
But Lisa,
and they need
I cannot
to
flip the switch at the furnace or the boiler at Redfern. What I need to have happen is for federal money to move fast so I can replace that boiler and ensure that those 1,700 residents have consistent heat. That is the job. That's the challenge of anyone in this seat. That's the job.
I understand as an executive, that's your job is to oversee everything and be big picture, but as a human being, doesn't that bother you? More than 60,000 people without heat over the weekend?
I don't know about those numbers, but I will tell
those
you,
are your numbers. You said 10% of NYCHA's.
There were approximately 15,000 heating complaints, and what I said is over 90% of our residents had consistent heat. Look, I have always
which is your number. 10% is 60,000.
I have always led with. There are 1 in 14 New Yorkers who rely on NYCHA for home. It is our responsibility. It is my responsibility to ensure that.
But do you feel bad about it?
Of course we do. Of course, and everyone who was working, who was talking to both Glenn and the myriad other residents were there working in frigid conditions to try and make it work.
We understand, but these people are living in frigid. You keep saying they're working. They're doing their. Wait a minute. Hold on one second, because this is annoying me a little bit. You keep saying the workers are doing this great job in the frigid condition, which I'm sure they're doing the best that they can, and they're understaffed, but they're getting paid. That's their job. What about people like Glenn and his family and the thousands of other people? This is their home. Yes. They have no place else to go. They're just trying to live, and they're paying rent. They're technically the customer.
And we do, and we should, and we must do better. And so just to respond to your question, doesn't it make me feel bad? Of course, I want people to be able to have heat. And so But
I don't hear you saying that. I hear you saying it officially. I don't hear you saying like, you know what, I'm going to make sure next year we don't have these kind of numbers if we get a cold spell. We could get another cold spell the end of January or February.
Will. And the challenge for us is going to make sure to ensure that our communication, to your point, and that the coordination with our city partners is better and improved. So
are you doing anything to coordinate with the city partners?
Absolutely.
Like OEM,
I was on the phone with Commissioner Esposito several times this weekend. I was on the phone with the head of the Red Cross this weekend. I was on the phone with Councilman Richards this weekend. So this is both personal, but it is our responsibility to make sure that people have safe and clean and connected homes. So absolutely, is it acceptable? No. And I take issue a little bit with the sense that people aren't working. Are they working?
I'm not saying they're not working. I'm saying they're getting paid for a job. That's not equivalent in my book to somebody who's paying to live there and not having basic human services.
Are actually NYCHA residents. A lot of these folks have a very, very unique perspective on what it's like to be a New York City housing resident.
This has been going on for years.
But do you feel any hope? I mean, we have to give Chairperson Olatoye credit for coming to the panel,
no question,
knowing that she was going to be facing some tough questions.
No question, and everyone at NYCHA will understand that she is not a mechanic. She is not the person that's going there to actually take apart the boiler, fix it, things like that. But you are the gatekeeper to answers, to action. I look forward to having an open relationship, be able to call you, speak to you, and let you know our community grievances.
I want to thank you all for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. The chair and CEO of NYCHA, Shola Olatoye, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Also with us, Donovan Richards Jr., New York City Council member, a Democrat from Queens, represents thousands of NYCHA residents, and tenant leader Glenn Collins of the Redfern Houses. He's the president in Far Rockaway. Thank you all so very much for being with us. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.